Breakfast with Bob.
Welcome, everybody, to Breakfast with Bob. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by the PTO, the Pro Triathletes Organization, by Amp Human, VeloFix, Normatec, Form Goggles, UCAN, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. CAF just sent out 3,921 grants, totaling $5.9 million to keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport. Our next guest, one of our favorite people on the planet, six-time Ironman world champion, the first inductee into the Ironman Hall of Fame, USA Triathlon Hall of Famer, Mr. Dave Scott. Big D, how are you doing?
Hi, Bob. Thank you for that glorious introduction. Always overstated, but nice to see your Hawaiian shirt again and those sideburns you've got. That's very trendy. No, you look great.
These are coronavirus. These are Elvis sideburns. I figure I let my Elvis burns come in.
Well, I've been cutting my hair, and it's difficult in the back, so that is a challenge. So you can't see the back side. Really pretty on the front, though.
So I've been working on this thing for a while. The greatest comebacks in Ironman history in terms of people coming from behind and that type of thing. But the thing that hit me the most recently was, you finished second in 1989 and then weren't able to race again until 1994 and came back and, basically got within 11, 12 seconds of leading that race. So talk a little bit about that. Going from 80, I'm sure after finishing second 89, Iron War, this great battle with Mark Allen, you were fired up to come back in 1990. What happened during those years? Was it all injuries?
Went on a long hiatus, Bob.
Yeah.
That really wasn't the plan. It wasn't sulking in defeat after 89. I thought, gosh, I got to come back and redeem myself.
Yeah.
I'll be back in 90, and you're not saying that right away, but shortly after that, I started having a little bit of injury in my ankle, and ironically, it was just a pair of old cycling shoes that I wore until I probably could have used them as slippers around the house. I know it sounds so silly, but it actually, that was the thing that was irritating. And a couple other extenuating circumstances. Ryan, my first son, was born right before that 89 race with Mark in August. And then my second one was born 15 months later, Drew, in December of 90. So all of a sudden, I had these two kids back to back, and looking at October 90, I kind of had this injury. I had two small kids. I thought, I'm not really ready to race. I knew, Mark was riding a big magic carpet, would certainly be back in 90. And that wasn't, that wasn't my motivation. My motivation first and foremost was me. So I kind of waffled with a couple races in 91 and 92. I never could really override the injury part of it. My kids were getting bigger. That is no longer an excuse. I said, if I'm going to get back, I better do something. But almost 5 years went by, and certainly 5 years calendar-wise from the date of the races, from 89 to 94. And it was, Dave McGilvery, our good friend, who was back and raced in 1980 in Boston Marathon race director, and same age. And I'd worked with Dave and been to a few of his events. He said, Dave, you got to come back. I know you still got the bug. Get off your butt and do something, and let's look at 1994. So that was kind of the impetus to get going.
So during that period, did you think I'm done, or was it just one of those things you kept training and then all of a sudden you realize I'm not going to be ready?
Maybe a little bit of both, Bob. But I think there's always ambivalence and apprehension with, where I was seemingly pretty solid in that Ironman race, and Mark beat me, and now time is going by, and I think, gosh, do I still have it?
Right.
And it's no different than, any other athlete with an injury coming back, and, you're not putting all your self-doubts out there on a big movie screen, but there's not an athlete alive that comes off an injury and said, am I going to be as good as I could be? Injury was pretty minute, and so it was also just, momentum of making that mental and emotional conviction to get back. And physically, I really thought that was that was the last component. If I could just kind of feel my way through, because I know all the physical cues of feeling strong. I knew exactly what it would take to probably be there. And I'll say exactly, there's always a percentage of the unknown. So when Dave had said, Dave, you got to come back. This was in late 1990, or excuse me, in 93, early 93, I think. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. Now I was kind of quiet about it, but I had sort of made a public statement that I was going to come back for Hawaii. And I really had to test the waters with other races. And really the first race setting up October was May in Gulf Coast, and it was utterly catastrophic. So it was one of those shockingly bad days on paper, but part of me, in looking just at how I did in that race, I said, oh, it's okay. But really, for people, the viewers that were there, my competitors, everyone else just said, oh my gosh, this is just absolutely, utterly embarrassing for Dave. I don't know how he's going to do another race, let alone do Hawaii in October.
I just remember seeing the photos, and you were cramping so badly. I mean, you could barely get up to go run at the end of the bike ride.
Well, it was the silliest day. I won't mention the company, but I had an arrangement with a bike company. They weren't able to ship it. The guy who I was dealing with, their marketing director, said we're the same size. Hey, I'll ship the bike to Florida. You can try it a couple of days before the race and get on it and ride, 56 miles. And I did, but as you know, and everyone alive, and my advice to every athlete is never do that. Never get on some equipment. And, if it's a change in pedals, maybe, but not the whole bike. The geometry, totally different. I mean, it was just idiotic. And I got on that bike and I thought, that's okay. But into the race, not even 20 miles in the race, I said, oh gosh, I feel bad on this bike, and just started loading me up differently. And I had to get off the bike several times because I was cramping my hamstrings. And I'm not known to cramp. I just don't have cramps. I've had a few in my life. And I got these cramps 25, 35 miles, and I had to get off, and they were so severe. I couldn't even bend. I put my hand in the bike seat, tried to bend over, stretch that thing. It was wicked. I limped into the transition. Every bike is gone in the pro rack, or all the shoes are gone. Excuse me. All the other bikes are racked. And the announcer, I think, and everyone else, we didn't have the media coverage in '94 that we do now. So I just fell off into this vacuum. Where is Dave Scott? So I came in. All I wanted to do was get out on the run and just get away from this seemingly embarrassing moment where I was, I think 25, 30 minutes behind, 40 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
And I came in and I just got off that bike, and my whole backside cramped up so badly. I literally just threw me to the ground. And of course, the pavement was scalding hot. It was Florida, and I'm lying there. And people didn't know what to do, whether to put a sheet over the top of me or say this life is over, or douse me with water, or give me a muffin. I mean, I think people were so befuddled by. We just don't know what to do with Dave Scott. We've got to get him out of here because this is awful. It took me a while to get up. Someone came over and I was able to sit up. I just want to get my shoes on. That was difficult. Finally, barely was able to run out of the transition area. A lot of people, several hundred meters, sort of yelling at me, but I think at the same time thinking, gosh, would you like to go to the hospital? And I remember, I will never forget this until the day I die. I had kind of pulled over because a lot of the amateurs were blazing by me still. And of course, I had droves of them on the bike already. Two guys came by me. They recognized me, and I was barely moving because I was so darn stiff trying to get this cramp out. And they had turned, and one of them said, "Hey, Dave, just cooling down, huh?" And they thought I'd won the race. And I just said, "Hardly. You guys are passing me." And I couldn't get upset at them. It was comical. I finally came around where that cramp loosened up, and I was able to run decently the last 4 or 5 miles. But my leg was sore for almost a month after that event. That was May. I said, I can still do Hawaii. I don't know why. I just said, okay, I was able to mentally rally, and that just showed me that, okay, maybe I have just this seed of hope.
Yeah.
So sorry, Bob, that was kind of a long.
No, I love that. I mean, the deal is, and then, but you're the type of guy, okay, if I'm going to go back to Kona, people think you're 40 years old, you're over the hill, you can't be successful. I mean, I think we've learned over time that endurance athletes can really do well, and actually not just endurance athletes, all athletes can do very well, and Tom Brady in the mid 40s. So it became sort of a mission a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go to Kona and I'm going to be 40, and sort of the pressure's gone. I'm going to see what I can do. I know deep down you wanted to win the race, but also the reality was, what can I do? That seemed to, was that part of the motivation?
Yeah, I think what can I do really was the sort of the guiding light, and I don't know if it was my ego. It was just maybe a sort of an inner confidence that I had, which is part of your ego, and it was very quiet because I didn't know how to compare myself with the other athletes that were lined up, and I was very mindful and very respectful of them, and I said, I don't know if I have it, and I can stay with them. I knew that I was getting stronger in preparation, so post that race in May, all the way up through October, I could see, physically, I could see my body changing. I could tell I was getting stronger in all three. And I felt like, all right, now I'm coming around. I feel like I'm athletic again. And so I had felt that in, not from 89, but I just felt like it took me a while to get my cycling back. And I was confident in my swim and my run going into that 94 race. And my cycling had come back. I was in Colorado and right in the big mountains. And I just felt like, oh, wow, all three are coming together. Then I said, I feel confident. If I'm there, I think I might be able to win this race. And of course, I shared that with my family and friends that had come over for that 94 race. I said, I think I can win this thing, but don't tell anyone.
Keep that to yourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
I just remember when the pros bring their bikes in, and everybody's looking at your bike with the shifters down on the top tube. Everybody else has their shifters out at the end of the bars, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, what dinosaur belongs to this? What is this thing doing here?" But it's sort of nice sometimes, because I don't think people were thinking Dave Scott is going to win the race. It wasn't that normal pressure of, I'm the defending champion, I got number one on. You really had nothing to lose. You already won the thing 6 times.
Yes and no, Bob. I think that's where your ego does come in. I mean, I had made a good statement in Kona, and I wasn't planning to be in the top 15. That didn't sound right.
No.
And so, but I don't think my competitors feared me. I think they were mindful of me, that I'm in the race, and I could be an odd nut in that race. They knew that I was competitive, and if I happened to be there on the bike, that might start to worry them a little bit more. And it sort of played out that way, that all of a sudden I had moved up and I was on the bike, and then I took the lead on the bike, and even I was not surprised. I just felt strong on the bike, and I could see where I was, and had lost some time in T1, and now I was making up time, and I just said, wow, my legs feel good. Here I go.
Well, you got Ken Glah there, you got Greg Welch, you go by both of them, all of a sudden you're leading the Ironman. It's like, that had to be such an ego boost at that point, to be leading the race, because it was such an unknown.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I remember Jürgen Zach, and I raced him in Avignon years and years ago, and I'll come back to Hawaii. I was in the lead, and Jürgen Zach, it was kind of hilly. It was a tough course. He comes by me on the bike, not like he's on a motorcycle. And I think he was 21 or 22, and people knew of him, and I did as well. And he comes by me, and it's almost like he's got a crowd around him. I beat Dave Scott. I beat Dave Scott. And I said, well, we're just on the bike, Jürgen. Well, that just inflamed me. And I said, I said to myself, you're not going to beat me. And so I killed myself to stay relatively close. He came off in T2 ahead of me, but not by much. And I just remember running flat out for the first 3K. I thought I was going to nearly explode. Caught him, went around him, and that was sort of my, wow, I'm not going to beat you if I can't live through the remainder of this 18-kilometer run, but 21K total. But it was sort of the same feeling in '94 when I went by to Kenny and Greg, and I didn't realize the other Mike Pig was also back there, and I didn't realize that because I had passed him, but they kind of formed this group. My feeling was, I'm here where I need to be. The race is still a long ways until that finish line. So just ride with confidence. And I felt as though when I went around them, that I was not going to pull away, that I was not going to open up a lead. I said, now I can dictate the pace. And I liked leading. So I kind of felt that I was going to have company, but I didn't mind being oscillating back and forth, maybe between 1 and 2 the whole time. And ironically, it was Greg and myself who were pretty much in the lead the whole time.
Yeah, and then there was a point where Jürgen comes by, right? And they had preems on the bike at out there on the Queen Highway, and I think you're riding close to Welch, and Welch, you started to chase to go for the preem. And here's a guy you're competing against, and you're basically like, Greg, where are you going? I'm like, dude.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even remember that, Bob. Your recollection is just epic, and certainly aware of Jürgen's talent, which I just alluded to, and now he's gotten even stronger on the bike, and I think he held the course record on the bike to that date. So I kind of felt like, all right, I'm riding well. Greg is strong. He's a great runner. Jürgen hasn't shown that he has the running ability in Kona. Yes, he can ride, but not in Kona yet. So I can't try to outdo what I've just done because there was a 5-year hiatus. I felt good, and I'm kind of tapping myself at the point where don't push it any further because you do have a marathon in the end.
So when you get off the bike and you're running along and Welch's leading, and this is a great runner, but he really up until that point, he had not proven it in Kona. Even though he had taken third in '89, he was 20 minutes back of you and Mark.
Right.
As you started to close on him heading towards the energy lab, what was going through your head? Because he was in your sights.
Well, we got off the bikes together, and he got away quickly and quickly opened up a roughly 20 to 21 second lead. I don't know how many times I heard 20 seconds, 21 seconds, 20 seconds. So that was all along Elite E Drive. And as we were moving along Elite E Drive, that margin stayed the same. And I felt pretty rough at the outset. So I thought, just wait till you get on the Queen K and we'll be well into the run. And all of a sudden I felt like we were running well. I don't, to this day, I don't know our splits like I did in 1989. I don't really know why. I just knew that margin was 20 to 21 seconds. In the energy lab, going downhill roughly for that first mile, and kind of you're right along the beach for the next mile, and you've got 2 miles to kind of repeat yourself, come back up that grade. I felt on the downhill, I'm pretty economical. I'm unsightly, but I'm economical. And I thought, okay, I'm going to close that gap on him because it's not going to take a lot out of me. And I'm just going to, I'm going to put some heat on him now. And I have to, because he's running well. And so as we were running down, for some reason, it's almost like he just read my mind because Greg picked it up as well. I knew I had made up 10 seconds and got within 11 seconds, and I could see the margin. 11 seconds isn't much. I think we were a little over 6-minute pace going on that downhill and not running as well as Mark and I had raced in '89, but I felt well enough. So I 10, 11 seconds, I said, okay, this is great. I'm getting close now. He knows it. I'm going to see him on the turn. And we're darn close as you pass each other. But when I got to the bottom, and it's very hot down there, people have done it. It said that's never really been an issue for me. I can, I'm kind of like a lizard in that climate. And, but I felt kind of a wave of fatigue. And I said, okay, well, just, bide yourself some time getting out of the energy lab, because it's a pretty good grade back up to the Queen K. And it's really on that last mile coming up. And I could just feel myself, I'm slowing down. And certainly Greg was now putting on a greater margin. I could see that 11 seconds was now a lot greater than 11. In fact, when I got out of there, I said, "Oh, that was not good, Dave. Greg has made or has increased his margin." And I said, "Ooh." It was a minute 30 something, minute 37 or 38. I kind of recall coming out, and I thought, "Oh goodness, this is going to be tough to make up." But I wasn't defeated by any means. I said we still have a ways to go. He's riding on some pretty good momentum that I just had given him on that, and going from 11 seconds to 1:38. He's saying Dave's tired. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he? But I thought I could make it up, and I think he just put on some new fast shoes over that last 6.5 miles. So we ended up 3 minutes and something different. I don't really recall, but a pretty big margin.
But as you're heading back to town, knowing you've got second, and knowing that at 40 nobody has gone as fast as you're going, what was going through your head? Obviously, you want to win, but you did everything right and were beaten on the day by somebody who happened to be better.
Yeah, that everything right, but I think in defeat you always analyze what you didn't do right. While I had an okay swim, I felt pretty solid. I felt like the cycling leg was very good, and then the run was not up to par. And I faded as we just went over, and I didn't close that gap at the end. And historically, I was always strong over the last 6 miles. So, and the split was slow. The run split was really slow. I had been much faster in the earlier 80s when I had won. My run split was under 2:49 or 48 or something like that. Yeah. And it was slower in 94. And I thought, well, Greg didn't have an extraordinary run. He didn't run 2:40. No. If I'd run 2:45, I would have beaten him. So, or 2:46 or 2:47, I would have beaten him. But woulda, it doesn't play out in the history of our game and the competitiveness of that race. So coming back to your question, Bob, when I, was coming out of Lee Drive, I just said, that was it. I couldn't go any faster. We can look at splits and what I would have liked to have done. But, overall, the race was very gratifying.
Well, again, when I look at comebacks and somebody's been gone for 5 years, and coming back to a lot of these guys weren't pros. A lot of these guys, you probably didn't even know who the heck they were. A lot of them had certainly never raced you before.
Right.
To come back and do so well is pretty impressive. That's why I've always looked. I know 96 getting fifth and coming from 26th, 27th place off the bike and running 2:45 and getting fifth place is your favorite because your boys were there. But I look at I just saw Jan Frodeno. He had won his second, and then he had back issues, and the following year he had a stress fracture in his hip after having that great race in South Africa. Yeah. And he was basically missed 1 year and came back. You missed 4 and came back 5 years later. That's pretty impressive.
It's a hard thing, I think, when you're kind of in your prime, whatever your prime is, and sometimes you don't really know it. In other words, time oriented or distance oriented, if you're a long jumper, you're getting better, or you're running faster. And you think that window is going to be longer than it really is, and history sort of tells the story. And, Jan's a good example. I mean, he made such a mark with Olympics and ITU and World Championships, and then he was a brilliant 70.3 athlete, and then he's come over to Hawaii and just, decimated everyone. He's just an extraordinary athlete. So anytime you miss one of those events, and I can go back to 1988. I was there ready to race. I had, one kind of a string of them, and 82, 84, 86, 87. I said, I'm there for 88, and I was having those issues. Well, okay, I couldn't do it. I'll come back in 89 and win, and then. I kind of look at the other years in between. We talk 90, 91, 92, 93. Golly, I was still a relatively young guy. Could have maybe, been back at the starting line those years. And I'm hoping that, the athletes that are injured and have the mental fortitude to come back to do it again. And Jan is a great example. He's a remarkable athlete, but he's getting older. He's getting
Well,
older.
I mean, you look at a lot of our guys, like 37, 38 years old, still going great. But like you said, there's a fine line.
Right.
16 lane is a great line. Or when you come to Kona, there's a fine line between being fit and being effed.
Well, I've always looked. I know, Bob, we've talked about this before. I always look at and women as well. How is their marathon? Because a lot of times the running legs, you just don't have it, and over time, those part of the physiology of not getting that rebound or recoil is that you end up squashing the myofilaments, part of the muscle cell, and they just don't come around. That's why you see a lot of the athletes that are trying to hang on, they just don't have the run pop. And then you see these other ones that started late and they're running really fast. Other athletes are able to continue to run quickly. So I kind of look over time, how has that person, male or female, been running off the bike? Because I think when we look at, world championships in Kona, that's not the time to just say, oh, I think I'll just sort of finish the race. I mean, you got to smash yourself. If you're there and you're winning, well, blow out every valve you've got to have the fastest run on the end. Oh, I think I'll just kind of cruise it coming in, unless you're like Daniela Ryf, who had a large margin. Well, what's the point of really killing myself? But I guess my attitude was always run as fast as you can. You've trained to run fast, so go run fast. Don't ease up over X amount of time.
When I look at our history, you talk about you and Mark going 240 and 241 back in 1989. And the swim really doesn't change that much in terms of 48, 49, 50. That's about the same. The bike has been the biggest change over the years. People are they're what used to be 440, they're going 409, and it's crazy, right? But the run has not been that. Patrick Lange went 239, and if you compared it to what you guys ran with transitions, etc., it's really the same.
Yeah.
Does it surprise you that we don't see people running 234, 235 off the bike?
Yeah, I just feel the brilliance of the runners now, men, and comparatively with the women not running as fast. And I want them to run fast. And I look at, I think Brownlee's going to be back. And you look at Jan, Craig Alexander, Craig on his historic day where he went 8:03, he stopped and he's rubbing his legs, but he's fast. He was faster than I was 10K, faster off the bike,
right?
In a 70.3. And certainly looking at Jan Frodeno and his, historic run and race in South Africa, where he went 106 off the bike. And his win even last year on a very tough day and other wins, he hasn't run to his potential. I feel not even close. And so I look at the gazelles that are running, men and women. I mean, Annie Haug is one to watch, and I think Jan should be running 233, 34. There's a few others that should be right there. Certainly below 6-minute pace, 237.30. They should be below that. And I'm looking at the women. Well, Chrissy and Mirinda ran 252s. Now it's getting a little longer. There's more time. Well, we should see a slew of women under 250.
Yeah, 245.
Yeah. So, it's just, people always ask, I don't have a crystal ball in this, Bob. My thing is they really have to maintain tremendous mobility in their shoulders and back and hips. And I think people lose that a little bit. And also just to keep their strength levels as high as they can, because doing that throughout the year with maybe 3 or 4 great races during a calendar year, January to October, you can't hold a peak. And quite often, if you get a little niggling injury or anything, your strength falls off a little bit and you're able to kind of come back up for Kona, but you're not quite as strong as you should be. I think if they could be at the peak of their endurance strength in October, they would run faster.
There's no question. Well, and I think obviously so many more Ironmans that people are doing. I look at someone like a Pete Jacobs starting at the age of 21. I think he did 30 Ironmans by the time he was 30, 31 years old. And we saw it back in the marathon days when you see a Rob Costello and guys like that, when they get to 15, 20 marathons.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's no way. Just mentally, what's out there.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that, and that's the other part is, you mentally, you have to be ready to run fast off that bike. And we've chatted about this in previous conversations about a lot of the athletes that are amazing still have the Kona wet blanket. Like, I don't think I can run fast here, even though I've done it in Ironman Frankfurt or Cairns or wherever they've done their Ironman race. There's always this seed of doubt that they can't do it in Kona. I go, why not? It's the same distance. Put your shoes on and go. So I think a lot of the superstars really have to allow their confidence to percolate to the top at that race, knowing that they have the gift to run fast. And I think there's a lot of self-doubt.
For you, Dave, how are you doing physically?
Oh, I feel okay, Bob. I'm 66, my age. And
I'm 69 today, baby.
Today, yeah, Bob. Well, happy birthday. No wonder you look so vibrant. Yeah.
It's always a treat.
Yeah, 69. Well, that's something.
Old.
Yeah, here we are. I feel okay. I've had a couple of heart things that kind of rooted around on the second one. I was going to have a third one. They wanted to run through a few tests to see how my pulmonary veins working. I feel particularly on the run and the swim, and obviously not being able to swim with COVID. I just feel like someone's pushing on my chest. I can't take a deep inhale. On the bike, I can get away with a lot higher output, lower gear, and maintain a pretty good clip. And so everyone's still my prey out there on the bike. I just finished riding bike. Bob, I rode just a little under 40 miles, and I said, wow, that was pretty good today for how I feel. But the other ones are comparatively just dreadful. They're dismal. I mean, I'm running 10-minute pace, and on the downhills, I'll click off a 7-minute pace for just a little bit, but pretty slow. I need to have another heart-related thing, and that's kind of overriding, my athletic craziness, which still exists today.
Always. How much training are you doing on a daily basis? Just like 2 hours?
Well, it's obviously with the COVID-19, that's altered things. So I'm unable to swim. I have my makeshift strength stuff. I'm in my office. So right out here, I have my ramshackle weights. I have a little rack. I've got all my stretch cords. I've done lots of videos on these things too, so people seem to dig those. So I go through a routine on that 4 days a week. And on the strength stuff, I take myself to pretty hardy fatigue. So if I get 2 hours a day, that's pretty good. I wrote an hour 50 today. I know exactly it was an hour 50. And I'm going to do my strength stuff later today. I spend about 45 minutes on that. So yeah, I'll say 1.5 to 3 is maybe that's an average of 2, huh? Or somewhere close to that.
That is awesome. Dave, thanks as always for taking time. It's always just such a treat to chat with you. I love everything you brought to the sport. People don't quite realize sometimes that you were the Roger Bannister for us. You were the guy who broke all the barriers, going under 10, under 9, under 8.5, because of that mentality that you had was, why can't I run fast? Why can't I ride fast? I shouldn't be limiting myself here. And I think that's pushed everybody else to do what they're doing.
Well, there's certainly a lot of older folks still racing quite well. So, and I'm always rooting for them. I think that part back in '94, it was really kind of an unknown arena. And now there's a lot of athletes, men and women, that are doing quite well. So pleasure chatting with you. Happy birthday. And I know right before we went on the air, we were just talking about your Challenge Athletes Foundation's program. Yeah,
it's actually going to air. It'll be up on our websites after it airs this afternoon. But it's our Heroes of Sport program. And we've got some celebrity appearances from Bill Walton and Drew Brees and Jimmy Johnson. And it's pretty cool. It's just seeing what our athletes are achieving. And I'm going to send you a little video of two of our quarterback guys. One is a single of a below knee amputee, one's a double above knee amputee, and having a little football conversation about being a quarterback. And Drew Brees drops in just to photobomb and hang out with the boys. So it's
awesome.
Good stuff. Pleasure. Dave Scott has been our guest again. We're brought to you by the PTO, the Pro Triathletes Organization. Actually, Dave, what do you think about this, the PTO? Have you thought much about this thing?
Oh yeah, I've kind of been involved in the quiet ground roots of it, and watching it sort of evolve, and quite a few hurdles. I think it's actually a very good thing, and I think they've got good organization and structure. It waffled for a while, and I think it's great for the athletes. I think it's going to be good for the sport. Creates competition, and it's good competition,
And money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they have the financial backing. And so I think the athletes are going to be, I think they'll embrace it, because they're going to be protected a little bit in some ways. And we shouldn't feel as though, we have to have our hands up to guard ourselves from all the evil doers out there. But I think it allows the athletes a bigger voice. And that's great for the sport.
Cool. Again, we're brought to you by PTO, Pro Triathletes Organization, by Amp Human, VeloFix, Normatec, Form Goggles, UCAN, and our Challenge Athletes Foundation. Thanks, Big D. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Bob. Likewise. Enjoy your day. Happy birthday.
Thank you, man.